What's up everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys had a great week and today I'm going to talk about baby-led weaning. So first I'd like to start off my video just saying that I am not an expert. I did not study in this topic, so I am just completely talking from experience, and I do recommend doing lots and lots of research. Don't just take my video or anyone else's video as all the research you're going to do. I really recommend reading books, reading forums, or watching tons and tons of videos on baby-led weaning just so you feel more comfortable, because it is a very different way of feeding your child. And of course, talk to a healthcare professional if you need to, but just know that a lot of healthcare providers are still on the puree end of it, so you might not get all the answers you want. But again, just do what's comfortable for you. Don't try it if you're too scared. If you're ready and you want to try it, then go for it. All right, now that that is out of the way, I'm going to talk to you guys about baby-led weaning. You're probably at that stage where you're considering solids, and that's a huge moment for you as a mom or dad. Considering what your baby is going to eat after it is either breastfed or formula fed. You're probably asking, what is baby-led weaning? I mean, it's kind of a weird name, but it makes sense. I promise it makes sense. So it's literally the baby leads its weaning off of formula or breast milk. And that's pretty much it. So the concept is that you supply your baby with food or solids, and your baby is going to lead itself into eating and exploring and enjoying these types of foods. It's kind of getting you away from spoon feeding, and it's allowing your baby to explore and learn what food is and how it tastes, how it feels, how it looks. It gets to associate the words you say. So if you say, here's some banana, instead of it looking like mush or like a liquid, they're going to say, oh, okay, a banana looks like a yellow object. It's peeled. I can hold it in my hand. It's squishy. It tastes sweet. And they get to kind of put all of the pieces together, and they learn how to chew it, and they learn that bananas are easy to chew. I don't have to use as much work. It's easy to break down, and I can swallow it. And I think watching that is honestly the coolest experience. If anything, baby-led weaning has been the coolest thing to watch my son learn how to eat. I don't know, that sounds crazy. I'm a crazy mom, I guess, who thinks the craziest things are cool. But, so let's just start in the basics of what it is. So we are getting away from purees. And that's not to say that you can't give your baby purees, because I still gave my son like the packets, and now he can drink out of those packets no problem, but I didn't feed him the packet. I just gave it to him, and he just taught himself how to suck out the stuff. And I think the biggest thing too is, before I ever gave him a puree of something, I always made sure he tried the fruit or the vegetable or the food in its whole form, if that makes sense, before giving him something that was pureed down. That way I knew that he knew what it was, so if he was tasting it in something else, he kind of could maybe make that connection that that's what he was eating. Next, they talk about the 3 must-haves. So the 3 must-haves are, baby must be able to sit with minimal assistance. So what that means is your baby needs to be able to sit in its high chair and not be slouching over. So you don't want them to be slouching forward, you don't want them to be slouching sideways, you want them to be able to keep an upright position. The next is, your baby needs to be able to have the grabbing skills. So they need to be able to grab things. What I recommend is just watch them when they play with their toys. Are they grabbing their toys, putting them to their mouth? Are they not quite there yet? Once they're there, that's the second item checked off your list. The third item checked off your list will be, they need to be showing interest in food. So that means that when you're eating, is your baby watching you? Are they intrigued? Do they want your food? And if they do, that's also a very big indicator that they are ready to explore food. Baby-led weaning really talks about food before 1 is just for fun. And I think that's like the biggest thing that a lot of people or a lot of parents kind of forget, because they think, okay, my baby needs solids, so now I need to make sure I'm doing full course meals. They need to be able to get all the nutrients that they need from this food, and that's not actually completely accurate. Babies until they're 1 get all their nutrients. I think it's like, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like 80% to 90% of their nutrients needs to be coming from either breast milk or formula. So you need to be still primarily breastfeeding or bottle feeding until 1 year old. Yes, as they get older, they'll start weaning themselves off of using milk, but for the majority of their foods, you want to make sure you keep up with your feeding. You don't want to eliminate feedings just because you're feeding them solids, if that makes sense. Let's go right into why we chose baby-led weaning. And there's really only 3 reasons. It made sense in our head. It's cost effective. And I also just didn't want to feed them gross mashed pureed chicken. Something that I really, really was drawn to with baby-led weaning is that baby-led weaning teaches our babies to chew their food before swallowing their food, which is such a crazy thing that we, as a society now, we feed purees, and to me it never made sense because they're swallowing their food, so they're not even learning what chewing is until later ages, whereas what we naturally do is chew our food before we swallow it as adults. So I thought that was a little backwards in my mind. So when I explored baby-led weaning and they were saying, okay, they're going to learn to chew before they even learn how to swallow their food, I was like, that makes so much sense. Why are we not all doing this? And I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, you do what you got to do. As long as your baby's fed, it's all good. But that really resonated with me is I want my baby to learn how to chew to lower the chances of choking. Now, we will talk about choking versus gagging later on. Next, I was really, really drawn to the fact that my baby is going to learn what food is. They're going to play with their food, they're going to taste their food, they're going to see what their food looks like. And to me, I was like, well, obviously that's what I want them to do. Then I started to think about it. I was like, well, why am I going to feed them purees that are mixed food and my baby's just going to know taste? It's not going to know what it looks like. Even if I tell them what it is, he's not going to know because he's never seen that before. So for me, I was like, okay, it makes sense that my baby's going to learn what food is. And I think that was like, okay, that's what I want to do with him. All right, so let's move into some pros and cons because a lot of people like their pros and cons list. So some pros. They learn to eat. They learn what food is, what it looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like. They're actually more likely to be less picky, if that makes sense. And I honestly have been thinking about this a lot as to why they're less picky. And I think it's this. Have you ever tried baby food? It's really not that good. I mean, pureed bananas is good. And most of the fruit is good, but then you give them chicken with mashed potato and gravy in a can, and it's like, it's not the best. Like pureed chicken, would you eat pureed chicken? Ooh, I don't think I would eat pureed chicken. And I think in my head I was like, as humans we really like to explore on our own. It's very rare that when someone tells you what to do, you want to do it. Am I right? But I think giving our babies the tools to do something and letting them figure it out is helpful in their desire to learn, rather than giving them something in the finished product and saying, this is what you're going to do. In my head, that's what I thought about, and I was like, okay, this makes sense. So yeah, they're usually less picky. Another pro is eating becomes a fun activity. It's not a sit down, let me feed you. It's sit down, here's your food, and go to town. They can play with it, they can put it in their mouth, they can feel it. Like, they learn what it is. They learn that if they put it in their mouth, it tastes good. They learn that if they chew it, they can swallow it. And I'm gonna insert some videos of what I feed my baby now, and maybe I'll insert a few previous videos of when Logan first did baby-led weaning. So it's also cheaper because you're going to be making food for your baby that you're probably eating too. And that's the best thing about baby-led weaning is you can eat exactly what your baby's eating. Especially as they get older and they start to be able to eat more food. That's the other thing, is just at the very beginning you're kind of just introducing things, but you can still eat. Like if you give them a cucumber, then you can eat the cucumber too. if you give them chicken bites, like bite-sized pieces of chicken, you're gonna probably eat chicken too. You might just put different toppings on it, and that's such a cost saver and a time saver. You're not making two separate meals. You're just making your meal and just putting some extra to the side with less salt on it or less spices on it. So those are our pros for now. Cons. So a lot of people believe, and it's true, there is a choking hazard. I mean, there's a choking hazard in all food types, whether it is purees or solids. There's just a bigger chance of choking. It's messy. It is so messy. But I don't really consider that a con, but it is a con, I guess, compared to purees, because purees, you're spoon feeding them and it's less messy. It's just messy on their face. Whereas when you're giving them food on a tray, it's kind of everywhere. And if you're not someone who likes mess or it really bothers you, I would probably advise either against doing this or just advise that it is very messy and it is a cleanup. But if you have a dog like I do, it's less messy. Don't mind my sit. Oh my goodness. The next thing is it's a little bit on the wasteful side. Unless you have a dog like I do. Then I don't find it as wasteful because my dog eats the leftovers. But it is a little bit more on the wasteful side. And the first, I'm going to say 4 to 8 weeks is a little bit on the wasteful side because your baby is not going to swallow for about 4 to 8 weeks. Could be more, could be less. Obviously, if they get teeth and they can break it down more and they feel comfortable, they will swallow. But for the most part, your baby won't be swallowing anything until, I want to say like 7 or 8 months. But on the other hand, they're still getting nutrients. So my son, when he started, he would put the cucumber in his mouth and he would just gnaw on it. So he's still like, and he would suck on it. So he would suck all the juices out and then he would just spit it out. And then he got stronger gums so he could actually bite pieces off and chew on them and suck on them. And then he would just spit out what he didn't want. And that's the coolest thing ever. Like, he knew what was okay to swallow and what was okay not to swallow. And that's crazy. I never taught him that. He just has instincts and built inside of him that told him or made him think this is not safe or this is not good, so I'm going to spit this part out. So that's pretty much it for the cons that I found. I'm sure there's more, and I do your own list and figure out what you think is best for you guys. Okay, so next we are going to go right into choking versus gagging. Will my baby choke? Possibly. Should you know how to help your baby if your baby's choking? Yes. You should know how to do that anyways. I didn't go to like special CPR training before I had my baby. I've been to CPR training before. So let's talk choking versus gagging, because that's always the biggest question. If I'm going to feed my baby solid food, like actual solid food, is my baby going to choke? So for this topic, this is how I'm going to approach it. Choking and gagging are very, very different things. And I really recommend you researching the difference between choking and gagging. Now, when you have a baby, your baby has very, 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 very sensitive gag reflexes. And they actually start more near the front of the tongue, not the front of the tongue, but higher up than the throat. Like when you're an adult, it's more further back in your throat. But when you're a baby, it's so much more further up on your tongue that they gag very easily compared to an adult. And for good reason. So when they eat, they can gag and keep their food in their mouth rather than letting it go down their throat. When your baby is gagging, they usually are sticking their tongue out. They're usually coughing it up, or they're making like that gag sound. At that point in time, just monitor your baby. Don't touch your baby. Don't stick your finger down their throat because that's just going to lodge it down further. And just honestly give it 5 seconds. Count to 5 using Mississippi's. Count to 5 and just see what happens, allowing your baby to deal with the situation before you react to the situation. If it got to the point where we hit choking, which choking means that the baby's airway is actually blocked, so they wouldn't be able to breathe. So the baby's airway is blocked and they're making like that, I'm trying to gag, but I can't because I have no air, if that makes sense. At that point, you need to perform the blows to their back. And again, research or do a class just so you know what to do. I don't want to give that advice because I'm not a professional in that. But you want to start with the procedures to get it out of their throat. Now, I will tell you right now that my baby, first of all, gags more on nursing from the milk. And I'm not going to lie, when I first started baby-led weaning, I was very nervous because I didn't want my child to choke. But they're such different things. And to this day, knock on wood, my baby has not choked once. He's gagged. He gags a lot when he eats, but he does not choke. And it's actually almost, I would say it's pretty rare that you're going to have a situation where your baby's choking. It could happen, so don't be naive and think it won't happen. And be prepared. But the gagging will happen a lot. And if you're okay and you can teach yourself to be okay and be able to see the different cues, you'll be fine. If you're someone who's going to react right away and stick your finger down their throat to get it out, then I would just say maybe stick to purees. You need to be confident and you need to be able to deal with the situation and be able to just give yourself some time, give your baby time to figure it out. Because they're still trying to figure out how their mouth works. They're figuring out what happens when the food gets too far in the back of their mouth. They gag. Where to keep the food in their mouth. They learn eventually to keep the food in the front of their mouth or their cheeks. And then as they break it down, they learn to swallow. And believe me, you'll see all these progressions as you go. And it's super cool. That's pretty much it for gagging versus choking. If you have any more questions about that, just leave a comment down below. Alright, so now that we've talked about that, I'm just going to go into how I started, what I fed him when he first started. So when he first started, Aaron and I, my husband and I, we decided to start very plain. So we started with cucumbers. And now when baby-led weaning, you want to make sure that the food is cut in about finger length. So measure by your finger. You want it to be finger length. You don't want it to be too big, so you don't want it to be too big that they can't fit it in their mouth, but you also don't want it to be too small. And then after we did that, we fed it to him. So we just gave him one. He picked it up. And then we all like gasped for the first time. It was like, because he's going to put it in his mouth. And we were all nervous about the choking. And so he put it in his mouth and he gagged. Not even a lie, he gagged right away. Because he put it too far in his mouth and he gagged it and he just threw it on the ground. Or threw it on the table. And then he looked at it and then he picked it up again. And he just kept trying and trying. Also, just when you're introducing food, with any food, you're introducing something new and you're waiting three-ish days, 4-ish days, so you can see that they're not reacting to what you're giving them. That's a huge thing. You don't want them to develop a reaction and then you have no idea what the reaction's for. All right, moving on. Oh my gosh, my head is scatterbrained. After that, we gave him peppers, sweet peppers. So we just cut them lengthways and we gave them to him, and he honestly would just gnaw on that until it was just skin, and then he would spit the skin out. So we did that for a little bit. So now I will insert clips of what I feed him now. So the first clip is breakfast. So for breakfast, I made him French toast. So I took some eggs, some cinnamon, and I put a little bit of vanilla in it, and then I dipped my toast and I made them, and I cut them into finger length pieces, and he just ate that. And then I also gave him a fruit with it. So for lunch, I gave him shepherd's pie. I think it was just potatoes, corn, and ground turkey. And I think maybe garlic powder, onion powder, or something like that. Very simple. So I just took some of that, put it in the microwave, mashed it up a little bit so it wasn't all like stuck together into pieces. And I just put it onto his plate and I fed him that. And I believe I gave him another fruit with that. All right, and then lastly we did dinner, and for dinner I gave him spaghetti, but not spaghetti noodles. I gave him, I believe they're bow tie noodles I gave him, with a little bit of marinara sauce. You do need to watch salt intake, so you want to make sure that they're not taking in too much salt because it'll dehydrate them. So just keep that in mind. Nothing was salted except for, I think the marinara sauce had a little bit of salt. That's pretty much it for baby-led weaning. I'm thinking maybe I'll do some videos of more detail. So if there is something you guys want me to touch more base on, like want me to talk a little bit more about meals, or I could do individual videos on things I've made for him to help you guys out, just leave a comment down below and let me know, and I'd be happy to look into it and see what I can help you guys with, because I honestly believe this way of feeding is the future. Like, it is just makes so much more sense, and it eliminates all that processed food. I mean, I know some people do make their own, but for the people that don't have the time or can't make time, it's just such a great way to feed your baby. So yeah, so I think that's it for my video today. Thank you so much for watching, and I know it was a little bit lengthy and it was kind of scatterbrained. That's kind of how my brain works. It's just, I'll start talking and then it'll just lead into something else that wasn't even what I was talking about, so I do apologize that my brain is a little bit crazy. But again, make sure you leave me a comment. Let me know what you prefer to do, if you have any more questions. Again, I just want to make it very clear to do research before you start anything. Don't take everything I say as fact, because I am not a professional. And I just want to also say, whatever way you choose to feed your baby is fine. I mean, as long as you're feeding your baby, no one can say anything. And I wish some of the parenting shaming would go away, just because it's so hard to be a parent these days, and the fact that people have so much to say on other people's parenting is just very sad. And I think it's so hard to be a mom or a dad and try, because there is no book on how to raise a baby or how to raise a kid. And I think that the more we can stick together and the more we can just help each other with things that we've done and that have worked to help others learn and be able to try different things to see if that works for them. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And if it does, it does. And I think that we just need to stick together and just remember, you're doing a great job and you're feeding your baby, and however you choose to feed your baby, whether it be real food, solids, packets, I don't care. As long as your baby is fed and happy and you're happy, it's a great day. So I just want to leave you guys with that. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I will see you guys next week. I hope you have a great, great, great weekend. And just remember to be kind and loving and treat everyone like you would like to be treated. And I will see you next Friday. Bye, guys.